Git tracks your content. It never, ever tracks a single file. You cannot track a file in Git. If you track 10,000 files, Git never, ever sees those as individual files. Git thinks of everything as the full content. All history in Git is based on the content of the history of the whole project. If you've moved a function from one file to another, Git will literally tell you the history of that function even across that move. Not a file move, a function within a file. It will go and dig back and say, hey, those 2 lines actually came from that other file 5 years ago. That is, again, something nobody else can do, and it boils down to the same thing. It's the content that matters, it's not actually the files. Being distributed very much means that you do not have one central location that keeps track of your data. No single place is more important than any other single place. So part of distribution is this offline work theme. Even if it's not completely offline, it is important to be able to do everything you want to do from any location without having to be able to access a server. What that basic fact actually results in is that you effectively have a lot more branching, because everybody who has a complete repository and can do commits on his own will effectively have his own branch, even if you don't realize it. Even if you think of your project as just having a single branch, every single time you disconnect your laptop and start working with it, you are on your own branch. And this is really, really important. And it is very different from anybody who's used CVS, where branching is considered something that only true gurus do. How many of you have ever used CVS? Okay, everybody. How many of you have really done a branch and ever merged it in CVS? Good job. I mean, it wasn't everybody, but it was actually more than I expected. How many of you enjoyed the experience? Ooh, okay. So there were a couple. But it is considered hard. In CVS, when you merge a branch, I've done it as little as possible, but I've had to do it. What you do is you plan ahead for a week, and then you basically set aside one day for doing it. Am I wrong? I'm not seeing a lot of people saying, no, it was easy. I liked it. It's horrible. If you're distributed, you have to realize that every single person has his own branch. It's not horrible. It's not something you even have to set up. It just is. In fact, in Git, we like branches so much that a lot of people just have 5 or 10 or 15 of them. Just because once you realize that you have to have a special branch anyway, you might as well have many, and one of the branches you do some experimental work on, and one of the branches you do maintenance on. You probably have a strict test suite, and you're not supposed to commit unless it passes. And then in practice, people make one-liner changes and ignore the test suite because they know that one-liner changes can't possibly break, right? This happens, right? This is a horrible, horrible model. It just means that you make huge commits because you commit something after you worked on it for 2 weeks, and you have 3 people working in the same sandbox, because before they commit, they can't see the changes that the other people made. This is common. It happens everywhere. It's scary. The other alternative is to use branches even in a centralized environment, but branches are always ends up being pretty expensive to do, so you can't do them for experimental features. Even if, I mean, you don't know beforehand if it's something that's going to take 1 day or 2 weeks, but most of the time, most programmers say, hey, I can do this in 48 hours, right? And it turns out, yeah, no, you couldn't. But because you feel you can do it in 48 hours, creating a branch, even in systems that are better at creating branches than CVS, is a big pain. So you don't do it because you think you can get it resolved, and you're back to case number 1. But if you decide to create a branch, you will affect everybody else's repository, because in a centralized environment, branches are global. So you're kind of screwing with everybody else, but at least you're not screwing with their main head branch. You are adding stuff to their repositories, but hopefully in a way that they won't notice. But it just make everybody's repositories bigger. So either way, you can't win. In contrast, in a distributed environment, what you do is you have 5 people. They pull the current head, which is hopefully good and tested, and they start working on it, and they start committing on it. And you don't need to wait for 2 weeks until your commits are stable, because your commits are always local. And what happens is, within that group of 5 people, you can pull from each other. That's what distributed means. There's no central location. It means everybody's the same. So you can merge between yourself. So not only can you commit every single line if you want to, without having to run the 2-hour test suite, but you can then communicate by pulling and merging each other's work, and one person finds the bug and commits it and tells the other 4 people, hey, my repository has a fix for this. Not having to go over the network for everything is a huge performance saver. Well, I can't show you demonstrations, and it's not a very interesting demonstration anyway, but this is a laptop that is, what, 4 or 5 years old. It's like a Pentium M 1.6 gigahertz thing. I could show you me doing a full diff of the kernel on that laptop in whatever, just over a second. Or diffing the whole source tree, taking 30 seconds. Maybe 30 seconds doesn't sound that bad to you. Trust me, when you're used to it taking 1/10 of a second, 30 seconds sounds pretty bad. So there are huge performance issues, even if you have a good network. Never mind the fact that most people don't have a good network. One of the things I wanted to make sure is that merges go really, really quickly, because I want people to merge often and merge early, because it turns out it becomes easier to merge. If you merge every day, suddenly you never get to the point where you have huge conflicts that are hard to resolve. So if you actually make branching and merging easy, you actually avoid a whole class of problems that you otherwise have a really, really hard time avoiding. So Git makes merging easy, but you will inevitably have cases where 2 maintainers send me the question to, please pull my stuff. And I pick one of them at random, usually because their mail happened to be first in my mailbox, and I pull their stuff. And another person had made changes that, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen, made changes that just clashed so much that I said, I could fix this up, but I really don't want to. I didn't write the code. It's not my area of expertise. It's networking or something like that. I can't really judge it. I can't test it. So asking me to resolve the merge is just crazy. It's not how you should do things. Okay, the Windows machine flaked out again. So what happens is, I actually, remember, distribution means nobody's special. So instead of me merging, I just push out my first tree that didn't have any merge issues, and I tell the second person, hey, I tried to pull from you, but I had merges and they weren't completely merge conflicts and they weren't completely trivial, so I decided you get to do the honors instead. And they do. And they know what they're doing because it's their changes. So they can do the merge, and they probably think I'm a moron because the merge was so easy and it was obvious I should have taken their code. But they do the merge, and then they update their tree and say, hey, can you pull from me now? And I pull from them, and they did all the work for me.